Picture a room packed with some of the most influential figures in London, old money elites, deeply rooted in tradition, alongside journalists who seem to know every hidden secret. The air carries the scent of luxury perfume mixed with the soft murmur of carefully rehearsed conversations. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, is completely at ease, gliding through the crowd with that familiar, knowing smile. And then suddenly it happens. A single sentence lands like a stone dropped into still water. Meghan was Andrew's first client. In a heartbeat, the room falls silent. The warmth drains out, but it's not just the statement itself, words, who said it. This wasn't an anonymous source or a disgruntled critic. This came from a woman who has spent decades moving through the most secretive and shadowed corridors of the royal institution. An insider. Someone pulling back a curtain the palace has spent years and millions trying to keep firmly closed. What followed wasn't merely a media frenzy, it was an earthquake. One that shook the very foundation of what people believed about Meghan Markle's rise, and the impact didn't stay confined to London. What began in Mayfair quickly crossed the Atlantic, landing in Montecito with precision and force. For years, the story has been simple. Meghan was self-made, a successful actress who met her prince through a chance blind date. But Fergie's alleged remark paints a far more layered and far more calculated timeline. If Meghan was already connected to Prince Andrew's social circle long before meeting Harry, it changes the narrative entirely. A fairy tale begins to look more like strategy. As people started digging into the meaning behind that loaded word, client, a louder question began to surface. Was this just a careless slip, or the opening move in a far more dangerous royal conflict? One thing is clear, the palace's silence isn't helping. If anything, it's pushing people to look even closer at parts of Meghan's past that were never meant to be revisited. But to understand why this moment felt so intentional, you have to consider the woman behind it. Sarah Ferguson is more than a former royal. She's a survivor. She's been cast out, publicly criticized, and dragged through scandal, only to eventually find her way back into royal circles. She understands the rules of this world, and in monarchy, timing is never accidental. By bringing up Meghan's past at a moment when the Sussexes are trying to reshape their public image, Fergie didn't just stir controversy, she reignited long-standing whispers. The so-called yacht girl rumors that have followed Meghan for years suddenly felt less like fringe speculation and more like something edging into official discourse. These whispers are no longer confined to the internet. They're now brushing up against the royal narrative itself. While Harry is reportedly struggling to come to terms with how something like this could surface from within his own family, the rest of the world is left asking a more unsettling question. What else does Fergie know? Long before she became the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle was driven and ambitious. Hollywood demands reinvention, and she adapted skillfully. But the leap from a deal or no deal briefcase model to a global figure didn't happen in isolation. It required access, the right connections, being present in the right spaces, surrounded by the right people. And some of those spaces reportedly weren't boardrooms or casting offices, but the decks of multi-million-dollar yachts in the Mediterranean. This is where the story takes a darker turn. For years, there have been scattered claims and grainy images suggesting Meghan appeared regularly at exclusive high-level gatherings where powerful men and ambitious women crossed paths. These weren't just parties. They were environments where connections were currency and influence was exchanged behind closed doors. The real mystery isn't her presence. It's why those years appear so carefully erased from the digital record. The term "I yet girl" is often spoken in hushed tones, a coded phrase hinting at a lifestyle that exists somewhere between elite networking and something far more transactional. In that world, discretion is everything. If the rumors hold any truth, Meghan wasn't simply observing. She was participating in a system shaped by wealth, access, and power. Investigators have pointed to her frequent travel between London and the Mediterranean from 2013 to 2015, trips that seemed difficult to reconcile with the income of a supporting actress on a cable TV series. So the questions begin to stack up. Where did the funding come from? And more importantly, who opened those doors? When these details are placed alongside Prince Andrew's well-documented social connections, the narrative begins to shift. It feels less like a Cinderella story and more like something out of House of Cards. Andrew's reputation casts a long shadow. His associations, particularly with figures like Jeffrey Epstein, have turned his name into a symbol of the darker side of elite power. So when Fergie allegedly linked Meghan to Andrew as his first client, it wasn't just a casual remark. It connected her indirectly to a world filled with allegations, legal controversies, and scandals the monarchy has been desperate to bury. The implication is striking. Meghan didn't enter the royal family as an unknown outsider. She may have already been familiar within its most controversial circles, which raises an even deeper question. Did the palace know exactly who she was from the beginning and allow the marriage anyway? And if so, why? Was it an oversight or a calculated move to bring someone potentially risky closer where they could be contained? In the digital era, disappearing completely is almost impossible. But Meghan's team, it seems, made a determined effort to try. In the lead up to the royal wedding, there was a noticeable effort to wipe the slate clean. Entire blogs disappeared, social media profiles were quietly shut down, and certain images seemed to vanish from photo agency archives almost overnight. But the internet doesn't forget that easily. Every so often, something resurfaces. A photo of Meghan on a yacht. Another showing her at an exclusive Hamptons gathering alongside Harvey Weinstein. A fleeting appearance in the background of footage tied to Prince Andrew's inner circle. These scattered pieces are slowly forming a larger picture, one the public is beginning to assemble on its own. With each new fragment, the official narrative starts to feel less organic and more like something carefully scripted. And now, with Fergie's alleged comment circulating, the urgency to uncover what's missing has reached a breaking point. What makes the situation even more volatile is the connection to Marcus Anderson. As a senior figure within Soho House, Anderson has often been described as Meghan's closest confidant. Some even refer to him as her second husband. He operates in a world where wealth and beauty intersect, building connections between influential figures and rising social players. Many believe he played a pivotal role in positioning Meghan within elite British circles, facilitating introductions that ultimately brought her closer to the royal orbit. But Soho House itself has long faced scrutiny, a private playground for the global elite where discretion is promised and boundaries are often blurred. If Marcus was the architect behind Meghan's social ascent, then he was also the gatekeeper of her past. And in royal circles, holding the keys to someone's past can mean everything and be used to seal things away or to unlock them at precisely the right moment. Inside palace walls, Fergie's Mayfair remark reportedly triggered what could only be described as controlled panic. Quote, "There's an established strategy when it comes to rumors. Stay silent. Let them fade." But this situation doesn't fit the usual pattern. This one is personal. It involves someone with deep insider knowledge and nothing left to lose. Sarah Ferguson has always carried a reputation for unpredictability, but her loyalty to her daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, is unquestioned. Some observers believe her comment was less accidental and more strategic, a defensive move. With the Sussexes repeatedly criticizing the institution, Fergie may have chosen to send a message. She knows the secrets, she knows the history, and she's not afraid to bring it up. A warning, plain and simple. Keep pushing, and more will come out. For Prince Harry, the emotional toll of this situation is reportedly immense. Sources suggest he is both furious and deeply shaken by the resurfacing of these allegations. He has always stood firmly by Meghan's side, viewing her as someone wronged by an unforgiving system. But defending someone becomes far more complicated when questions arise about their past. If Harry was unaware of Meghan's earlier connections, then he's now facing a profound breach of trust, one that could put serious strain on their marriage. If he didn't know, however, then it suggests involvement in maintaining a narrative that may not have been entirely truthful to the public. Either way, the once polished image of Montecito's golden couple is beginning to lose its shine. Tensions between them are said to be rising. Harry leaning toward confronting his family, while Meghan reportedly prefers a strategy built on legal action and public statements. Meanwhile, the monarchy's longstanding principle, never complain, never explain, starting to show cracks in a world driven by viral content and nonstop news cycles. Silence, once interpreted as dignity, is now often seen as avoidance or worse, guilt. The public isn't satisfied with a no comment anymore. They're demanding clarity. They want to know whether a senior royal married someone tied to controversial elite networks. They want to understand whether public funds have, in any way, been used to shield a story that might have destroyed another public figure entirely. Maintaining the illusion of stability is becoming increasingly difficult when each new revelation chips away at the foundation. And then there are the rumors that cast the darkest shadow of all, the alleged tapes. Throughout investigations linked to the Epstein and Andrew scandals, there have been persistent whispers about hidden recordings, footage captured in private residences, on yachts, material supposedly kept as leverage if such recordings exist, and if they were ever to surface involving a young Meghan Markle in a compromising context, the consequences would be catastrophic for the Sussex brand. This is the scenario that deeply unsettles royal insiders, the ultimate worst-case outcome. A verbal claim, even one from Fergie, is one thing, but undeniable visual evidence, that's something else entirely. No such footage has been made public. But the mere possibility is enough to keep legal teams on constant alert, preparing for a situation they hope never materializes. As the sun rose over London, the morning after that pivotal night in Mayfair, something had shifted. That single phrase, Andrew's first client, wasn't just idle gossip. It altered the timeline. It forced a reconsideration of Meghan's story no longer as a straightforward rise to royalty, but as something far more intricate, woven with ambition, connections, and calculated access. It served as a reminder that the royal family is not just a lineage, it's an Arabic Leaf, Arabic Clam, Arabic Lim, Arabic Hamsalawal, Arabic Seen, Arabic Tetmer Buddha, a system built as much on managing perception as preserving tradition. And secrets, no matter how carefully buried, have a way of resurfacing, especially when they're brought forward by someone who knows exactly where to apply pressure. Sarah Ferguson didn't simply make a remark, she unlocked a door. And now that the door has been opened, there's no closing it again. What we're witnessing is the start of a new phase in the royal saga, one where the traditional rules no longer hold and where the past is never truly buried. It only takes a single remark to drag it back into the present. Meghan's silence in response to these allegations is, in itself, striking. She has never been someone who shies away from telling her side of the story. And yet, on this particular issue, she has remained noticeably quiet. That silence leaves space that is quickly being filled with speculation, resurfaced images, and accounts from individuals who claim to have known her during those so-called yacht years. The longer that silence continues, the more it fuels public suspicion. To many, it begins to look less like restraint and more like there's something being concealed. And then there's Harry. He finds himself in the middle of a conflict he didn't initiate, but now has no choice but to face. His loyalty to Meghan has always defined him, but that loyalty is now under pressure from within his own family. If Fergie truly is the source of these claims, then the fracture isn't external, it's internal. It's internal. The tension isn't outside the palace walls, it's within them. It's the kind of complexity that makes even Shakespearean drama seem straightforward. The pressure continues to mount. The fractures are becoming more visible, and the world is watching closely, waiting for the next misstep, the next image, the next revelation. Because within the monarchy, there is no such thing as a clean break from the past. It lingers, waiting for the exact moment to resurface. As the Sussexes attempt to move forward, they're discovering that the privacy they sought in California doesn't truly exist. In fact, the scrutiny surrounding them now feels even more intense than it did in London. The difference is this time, they don't have the palace's powerful PR machine standing behind them. They're navigating this alone under the gaze of a global audience that is becoming increasingly skeptical of their narrative. The yacht girl storyline refuses to fade, largely because it touches on something fundamental: authenticity. If people begin to believe they've been misled about who Meghan really is, then the Sussexes risk losing the one thing that still holds value: their influence. In the end, Fergie's comment may have been a calculated act of disruption. By shifting attention onto Meghan, she could have, intentionally or not, diverted scrutiny away from Andrew. Or perhaps it wasn't strategic at all, just a moment of human error. A slip from someone who has witnessed too much and remained silent for too long. Whatever the motive, the impact is undeniable. The phrase Andrew's first client is now embedded in public discourse, an enduring footnote attached to Meghan's story. And as people begin to look beyond the polished surface of the royal image, a larger question starts to form. How many more secrets are still waiting to emerge? If this is only the beginning, then the deeper reality of the royal world may be far more complex and anyone imagined. For centuries, the monarchy has endured by knowing when to adapt and when to stand firm. But it has never faced an era quite like this, one where information spreads instantly and where the public can scrutinize and fact-check in real time. The clash between an old system built on discretion and a modern world driven by transparency is creating a crisis that no amount of damage control can fully contain. And at the center of it all is a woman who once set out to reshape her world, only to find that the world is far more interested in the chapters she tried to leave behind. The story linking Meghan and Andrew isn't just about rumor. It's about ambition and the price that often comes with it. It's about how difficult, perhaps impossible, it is to truly start over. So as headlines continue to circulate and social media fills with resurfaced images and shocking claims, one reality becomes impossible to ignore. In the digital age, the idea of a royal secret is almost a contradiction. Everything eventually comes to light, whether it's an offhand comment in a Mayfair ballroom or a forgotten record from a yacht years ago. The truth has a way of rising to the surface. The question facing Meghan and Harry is no longer how to silence the rumors, but how to endure whatever truth may come out. Because once the curtain has been pulled back, it can never be fully drawn closed again. And as for Sarah Ferguson, she remains in the background, still smiling, fully aware that she may have been the one who lit the spark. Now, every public appearance, every charity engagement, every carefully produced message from the Sussexes is being viewed differently. People aren't just focusing on the words or the presentation anymore. They're watching for subtle signs, the tension in Harry's expression, the strain behind Meghan's smile. They're searching for what lies beneath the image. And as questions surrounding the first client claim continue to intensify, the palace's silence grows louder, almost echoing as an unspoken acknowledgement of the chaos. In the game of royal power, there are winners and losers. But when it comes to royal secrets, no one escapes the cost. And that cost is usually the truth. As this story continues to unfold, attention will inevitably turn to the next reveal. Will it be another photograph, a statement from someone connected to those earlier years, or perhaps another unintended comment from within the inner circle? Whatever comes next, one thing is clear, the momentum has shifted, and right now it's firmly in the hands of those asking questions. The Sussexes have spent years shaping and sharing their version of events, but now it's the parts of the story left untold that are drawing most attention. And in that shift, the monarchy finds itself in a position it knows well, standing back, observing, and hoping the storm fades before it brings everything down with it. But this storm feels different. This one doesn't seem like it's passing anytime soon. Is this the end of the Meghan Markle fairy tale? Not exactly. But it does mark the end of the simplified version of that narrative. What we're seeing now is a more layered story, a more complicated Meghan, a figure with many dimensions, someone who moved through both the highest and most shadowed circles of global influence long before ever stepping into royal life. Whether she's viewed as the target of a calculated smear campaign or as a strategic player caught in her own design, one fact remains undeniable. She has permanently altered the monarchy. And as the echo of Fergie's remark continues to linger through the halls of Buckingham Palace, it serves as a reminder of something crucial. Within this family, the greatest risks don't always come from the outside. Sometimes they stand right beside you. The Andrews first client controversy highlights a deeper truth about elite circles. Everything is connected. There are no accidents, only intersections. And as those intersections begin to surface, the carefully maintained image of the royal family as a moral authority starts to erode. What remains is something far more human, a group shaped by flaws, ambition, and an ongoing need to protect what must stay hidden. The only real difference is the scale of the spotlight. And right now, the spotlight is intense, bright, relentless, and impossible to escape. What it reveals isn't a fairy tale, it's a story of survival. And the question that lingers is simple: when it all comes to an end, who will still be standing? As we close this deep dive into one of the most controversial moments in modern royal history, one idea rises above everything else: the power of a single sentence. In a world driven by billion-dollar reputations and carefully constructed media narratives, it took just 6 words to cast doubt over everything. Meghan was Andrew's first client. True or not, those words have shifted the conversation entirely. They've pushed people to ask questions that were never meant to be asked and to reevaluate figures they were once told to admire without question. And perhaps that is where Sarah Ferguson's real influence lies. She didn't just add to the story, she changed how it ends. And this is a conversation the world won't be letting go of anytime soon.